Hello, guys. This is Fight Commentary Breakdowns here. I got a very, very special guest. His Chinese name is Xie Chong, and he's probably known by Americans, by Canadians, etc. as Chong Xie.
这个，我去，这太累了，这个。知道吗？这个地方挤压是吗？在这块，在这块挤压。
My method of training is called Hyperarch Fascia training. I came up with this training really because of my research in Chinese martial arts, Tai Chi, Bagua, Xinyi. The goal was really, in the beginning, was to understand why we had the opportunity, the martial artists had the opportunity to lift weights and train with weights, but the best ones, they actually never really made a heavy emphasis on it, but the majority of the foundational exercises, for example, if you go to Shaolin Temple, the weightlifting is not the foundational exercise, but the foundational exercise, what I understand is isometric fascia tensioning, which is the mabu, which Western understand as a horse stand, right? So why do we do that? That's definitely something has been passed down to us from 1,000 years ago. So if weightlifting is the most useful training, then the question becomes, why didn't we have weightlifting as the foundational exercise?
抓地抓的特别，然后臀部也紧，臀部连接，所以你这样跳，这样跳就特别灵活。你肚子软吗？有一个那个瞬间，我看过比赛，我腿是啪。
Tell me about how you stumbled on Hyperarch Fascia and how you decided not only that this is cool, but you're gonna do more with it.
I had a friend who's really athletic, and he's also Chinese, and we used to go to the gym together. And I noticed that I was way stronger than him. I was lifting almost twice as my body weight because I worked my way up, and I was really serious about training. But he is on the slim build side, but he wasn't lifting nearly as much. But he's a vertical jump, and his athleticism is he was able to just outperform everybody on the court. And that's how I started to really get into fascia research and understanding what was the ancient martial artists were doing with isometric fascia tensioning. Because at that point, I was very disappointed in myself. When I was a kid, I trained really hard. And I thought with the foundation that I built, and I should be able to, outperform as well. The fact that it didn't happen, that raised a lot of questions in myself and in the way I was trained. So you have to kind of understand the Chinese translation part of the description of Tai Chi training, right? So first of all, I think a lot of things were mistranslated and lost during the Chinese to English, this process. So for example, the word Tai Chi, right? I see people ask on Quora, why doesn't the Tai Chi master use Chi? Because this translation, even though the word is the same, but the actual Chinese word is completely different. Tai Chi in Chinese, in Mandarin, is actually called Tai Ji. The word Ji has nothing to do with Qi, which means breath, which means energy, which means air. So, but when you translate to English, the word Qi and then Qi, there's the same word. But this is a complete, I think, completely wrong, completely false translation. It makes no sense. And this is how I think it creates a lot of confusion, even among the, let's say you grew up in the States, you learn the word Tai Chi, and then you're going to wonder the same, where's the Chi in Tai Chi? But in Chinese, there is no such correlation in those words. So Tai Chi, the core foundational strength they talk about, it's called silk reeling. Silk reeling. In Chinese, it's called 禅思劲 or 禅思力. So then you wonder, what is this 禅思力? They actually show you pictures, right? So they show like if you like go to Wikipedia, if you go to the website that talk about Tai Chi, you understand that 禅思 is like the silk web. Now, what is the silk web? If you study actually study the dissection, you understand the human body. The only organ that's, let me adjust my camera here. The only organ that resembles the silk web is the fascia. So the strength that they're trying to use is actually coming from fascia. So now we have to backtrack. So in Chinese, a lot of words are based on its shape. So how we write, words, like if I write the word that big, right? It resembles the shape. Like for example, if you want to write the word turtle, in the beginning, how the Chinese character was derived is derived from the painting of the turtle. The word mountain, for example, shan, it looks like a mountain, right? So a lot of these Chinese words were based on the actual graphics or what people can relate to. Then they take that and then they combine it and then put into words. So I think this is the same concept. When the Tai Chi master way back in the day, I would say the founders. Some people say Zhang Sanfeng is the founder of Tai Chi. Some people say he was a fictional character. There were the Tai Chi practice was much more ancient. But it doesn't matter who, but they were able to pinpoint that there is a silk web like strength that you need to be strengthening. That's very, very different than saying from muscle, 肌肉, right? That's a very different word. 缠丝 and 肌肉 is two different words. What I just said in Chinese means the silk web and the muscle. These in Chinese are very, very different words. So they were talking about a strength that's completely different than traditional muscle strengths.
Yeah. And guys, just before we continue, I just want to clarify to everyone watching, fascia is another way of saying the connective tissue. So it's the tissue that encloses your muscle. It's the tissue that you could say connects the muscle. And in fact, if you guys have seen one of the first commentaries that Rob and I did, Rob actually mentioned what Chong was talking about too. A lot of your strength comes from the connective tissue. So this is awesome. It's like a follow-up of that. But anyways, Chong, keep going. I just wanted to clarify for my audience who, let's say they didn't Google and they just decide, I don't understand. I don't want to watch anymore. That's what fascia means. So keep going, Chong.
The fascia research has been behind because in the West is because when the Western scientists, when they decide to do dissection, when they cut the cadaver up, right? So they want to look at the muscle. So what they did was they took out the fascia, which is like a yellow, dry layer substance. There are many, many layers of it. There is a superficial fascia. There's like 3 main layers of fascia. But what they're doing in the process is they will try to get rid of the fascia, which is the yellow, very yellowish substance. And they think that that's just maybe just not important. But they want to look at the muscle so they understand how muscle works. So that's the beginning of how Western science said, okay, we need to work on muscle. So now there's a tremendous push in Europe, especially Germany, in fascia research by Dr. Robert Schneid. And they're I think he's from University. They have done a lot of advanced research in fascia. And one of the things they did was they cut they measure the force transmission. So for example, you have a organ with the muscle with the fascia. Now to determine fascia plays a role in force transmission, they remove the fascia and they measure the force transmission again with only muscle. So now they realize the force transmission decreases by a significant amount. So they know that fascia do play a significant role in force transmission. But this isn't something that if you actually over here, because I have a lot of friends who are trainers, it's not mentioned in their study to become a trainer or become a CSCS certified strength trainer. It does not mention fascia. But
Wow.
you also understand something really, really interesting in the way that the theory of muscle contraction come about. It's called the sliding filament theory. This is how they currently, it's what the West describes as how muscle is supposed to contract. Basically, what they're saying is you have a piece of muscle going this direction, a fiber, the other fiber slide this way, and this sliding creates force. But we know from dissection already that muscle do not just react with muscle alone. Every muscle fiber eventually will have to interact with fascia, and there are multiple layers, 3 layers to be exact. So basically what the current theory is describing is false, because it does not include anything with fascia. So that's just a broad overview of how fascia and muscle interact. And what I've seen is, so here's why I said I was able to piece together this, reconnect this to the Asian past. So first I understand, okay, so there's talking about something completely different. The strength is coming from different organ altogether. So how do you actually train fascia? I was very, very lucky because as I was doing this research, I met one of my very good friends who's really, really athletic. And one day I was at his home watching TV, and I noticed his feet is completely different than my feet. And then that really intrigued me. I asked him, why do you have blisters, for example, on top of your toes? And I asked him to perform many movement barefoot so I can understand. Mm-hmm. One thing I had trouble understanding was the one leg jump, because I always thought, how can you eliminate the heel from this movement and still able to jump so high? Because he was able to jump very high off one leg, So I did a lot of research, and then I started to look at elite athletes' feet, like LeBron James, like James Harden. Then I realized that this is not a coincidence. And almost every elite athlete that superstar, we're not talking about just a regular pro. I'm talking about the best of the best. Mm-hmm. Their feet are completely morphed. Mm-hmm. They have this type of formation, which later on I call the hyperarch mechanism. Hyperarch. The toes are completely curled, and you can clearly see blisters. You can see extensor tendons, and you can see very prominent anterior tibial tendon, and you can see many of the signs that regular people simply do not have. Wow. And at that time, I didn't know what it was. At that time, I was like, okay, so there is a difference, and I don't know what it does. I need to understand it. So I was just I asked the person, I said, what are you doing differently in your feet that could cause this? Mm-hmm. He cannot tell me. He's saying, okay, I just use it. Now I understand, because this is a subconscious mechanism, just like breathing. It's like if I'm breathing 5 seconds or 5 times more than you, right? And this breathing pattern creates something. It gives me certain ability, for example. There's no way for me to tell you that, oh, hey, Jerry, you're breathing slower than me. Yeah. Because first, it's your subconscious mechanism that controls your breathing. You have no idea how many times you breathe, and I have no idea how many times I breathe either. Mm-hmm. So if some effects are derived from the subconscious mechanism, there's no way for me to teach you. So what I realized is that over time, and I experiment, I actually put almost 10 years of work in this. And 5 years ago, I found out what it is. It's a process in the feet. You have to go through through fascia tensioning, meaning putting tension in specific areas of the foot, especially the arc, in order for you to strengthen the fascia connection and strengthen the fascia connective tissue web throughout your body. But the most significant difference in the beginning would be your glutes area, which a lot of boxers or MMA fighters, elite ones, they will tell you that when they punch, they're punching not just through their arms, they're punching from their glutes. They understand that because they're glutes dominant. But majority of the people, average people, they can't use glutes. But the Western science, here's how Western science come to answer this question, because Western trainers, what they're saying is they already know. They're not asking the right questions because they think they already know the answer to the question of how to use the glutes. They would ask the people to do the band work, for example, hip abduction. Put a band around the knee, spread your legs, do squat, deep squat, or hip bridge. So these are the Western approaches to strengthen the glutes. But my research and the data of EMG shows this type of work of training doesn't really strengthen how much you can engage during a movement, because what you're doing there is really two-dimensional. But fascia is a three-dimensional web structure, a web network. So how do you use it when you actually run? How do you use it when you punch? How do you use it when you, let's say, shoot a basketball or give a left jab and then the hook? All these things, these require three-dimensional strengthening of the fascia. Now, that goes back to the foot, because on the bottom of the foot lies the plantar fascia. The plantar fascia connects all the way, not only to your glutes, but connects through all your fascia. It has an influence to all your fascia. So if you are aware of the Chinese traditional medicine, they have this, the chart of reflexology chart, right? They say, okay, the foot controls like the organs.
Yeah, it's really complicated. The diagram has like a million little points on the foot.
Right.
Yeah.
So that starts to make sense for me, because when you train, you're not only training your foot, it's actually your entire body. So your abs, your glutes, your internal organs through fascia are being influenced. Your body actually goes through a neurological metamorphosis. So it's sort of like in the beginning, when you don't have anything, you don't have fascia tensioning, you're like a worm. And through the stimulation of your feet through fascia, your body begin to change internally. You can't really see in terms of, oh, your muscles getting bigger. You can't see that. But your body is being holistically integrated. So you can use your body holistically rather than segmented. So that goes back to another martial arts anecdote, why the real masters can defeat someone who's much more bigger with muscles. Because when you have big muscles, that does not mean you're necessarily fascially connected. You could be segmented as well. So you have no way of defeating someone who's fascially connected, like a high-level martial arts master.
Wow. Fascinating stuff, man. Absolutely fascinating. So, once you started studying this and putting into action, is there a certification you can get or a school you can go to, or is this all basically self-study for you?
Currently there is nobody who has the amount of knowledge that I have in terms of training this way. I founded my own company after I found out what this thing does. Currently, there's a lot of fascial manual therapy out there. For example, rolfing is one. And then there's different type of, if you go to a PT, a physical therapist, they might have some fascial manipulation techniques, but that really comes from a rehab, not really enhancing your performance.
Exactly.
So my work is really to connect the dots to the Asian past of Chinese martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Why did these masters are training this way? And in China, in Tai Chi, the masters will actually tell you, the teachers, they will tell you a very simple term, but it's often get ignored. It's called 抓脚. They want you to, the direct translation means to grip the floor. That is actually a big, it's a generic term for activating the hyperarch mechanism. But a lot of people, because they have degeneration in their foot, 抓脚 or gripping the toes, it will not activate the mechanism. And that's why the results are hit and miss. You can have somebody who trains 20 years of Tai Chi, they still won't become a master. But I was able to isolate the exact mechanism in the foot so that when you train, you're gaining ankle stiffness, you're gaining more glutes recruitment, which all can measure by Western scientific tools like the EMG. The punching power can be measured by force bags, and the fascia tissue itself can be measured. How stiff, how loose it is can be measured by Mayan-Tong tools. So all these can be measured by tools, not people. So now you have data to back up what I'm saying.
Wow. So let's say someone comes to you and wants to get their fascia stronger, wants to start with the foot, etc. Do you start by assessing how good their fascia is, and then you start giving them like an exercise regimen? Is that how it works?
Yes, for sure. So the first, I recently just offered a 3-day course. Basically, first you go through a presentation with me. I talk about the background of the fascial research. I talk about why we're doing this way. Because for me, to understand the why, it's very important. Because I when I was a kid, my parents asked me to brush teeth, and I didn't understand why I didn't brush teeth for a while. But later on, you understand, okay, brushing teeth reduces bacteria spread, causes cavity, then this is why you do it. I think understanding the why is very important, because if you understand that fascia has a very significant influence in force transmission, you understand fascia has a very, very critical role in proprioception, in body coordination, in movement, then when you train it, it makes a lot of sense. And also, you look at, the thing is, the elite athlete of today, I actually researched into multiple sports, not just basketball or martial arts. If you look at Anderson Silva, for example, his feet are also morphed and show signs of fascia tensioning, which I have it on my Instagram. And also other athletes who are dominating in their fields. For example, Rafael Nadal in tennis. Their feet all show the signs of fascia tensioning. Their toes will naturally curl. And their foot, the fascial tension in the foot is tremendously higher than regular people. So in the beginning, you will get to know, why we're doing this, and then you get assessment. Assessment is basically a Q&A into how your body functions, and I would require you to send me the photos of your feet in different positions. Combined with the functional assessment, I would have a pretty good understanding of where you are in terms of fascia connection. And from there, we do the training.
I see. And viewers who will look at your YouTube channel, which I will link, and your Instagram, will see that you've worked with Zhang Weili, our current female MMA champion. So how did you get in touch with Zhang Weili? How did she get interested in this fascia research and this fascia hyperarch training?
Zhang Weili, actually, her training camp is in Beijing as well. And I watched her fight before. This is before UFC, before she became the UFC champion. She tried to punch the person, but she tried like 11 times. When the person's cornered, the person actually came out of it. I'm thinking, she needs help. I think if she actually had a little bit of more coordination in terms of the punching technique and punching power from the fascia, she would definitely be able to stop that person. And also at that time, she suffered an injury from the toe. Oh. She had a toe injury, and that is where my work comes in, because my work is not just to improve performance, but to improve performance, first thing you do is to prevent it. Because if you're prevent injury, exactly, is to strengthen the toes, especially the big toe. So here I give you a very simple explanation. So the big toe, so a regular person's big toe, they're pretty much just straight, right? They're relaxed and extended. Yeah. So in the Hyperarch method of training, your big toe need to be retracted towards the ball of the foot. What does this do, right? So here you can try yourself. If you were to push with the extended toe, if you try to push it, you're gonna feel like this joint over here is going to break.
Break there, yeah, exactly.
Because you can't really exert enough force with the toe alone. However, if you were able to retract your big toe and keep it close to your ball of the foot, and you push it, you can actually put your whole arm and chest into it. Yeah,
I feel it. I'm doing it on the floor right now. Like when I retract my big toe and I push against, like I was initially nervous to do that because I was afraid that, like something would snap. But actually, I have more power. I have more leverage that way. That's so interesting.
Yeah, so you have these joints on your toes, and they all are supposed to bend and retract. They're there for a reason. Otherwise, there is no point. We would just have a hoof as our foot if there is no functionality to it. So the functionality of these toes, you have to use the joint. You have to bend. And I found out through my experience and my just working with people, a lot of people don't have that ability to even curl their big toe. They have no neurological control.
Wow. Thank goodness I do. And I do credit Kung Fu. I think doing Kung Fu probably gave me that ability. Like I could move my three toes, like these three toes, I can't move them, but I can move this one separately and I can move this one separately, I think. Or I can move my pinky toe separately and I can move my thumb toe separately, and these three kind of move together. I think that's like my neurological connections in my toe right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. I think that's a good foundation. Because a lot of people, they can't control their toes. Wow. And they can't move them toe. And then they wouldn't know until you work with them.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, the first exercise is, for example, for our exercise is a elevated toe curl, meaning you have to curl your toes at the same time. But a lot of people is like, I'm trying, Chong, but it's not doing anything. So now you understand there is a link, and this link goes to the glutes. So imagine if your toes are degenerated, you don't have the neurological control to your foot. Now the link from the foot to the glutes is supposed to be there. But right now there's nobody in the world, I don't think anyone is talking about that connection. There is a very strong fascial connection that the elite athletes have. So you can go to any MMA gym, you can go to any even sports teams. You can measure the person's feet to glutes fascial connection. You can tell how good this athlete is already. And I found my research to be really, really useful, because a lot of times without even the person stepping on the court, I can tell, oh, this guy is a very, very good fighter.
Wow. And how long have you worked with Zhang Weili?
So we worked before she had the UFC, the UFC fight with Jessica Andrade. 3 months prior to the training camp, that's when I joined the team. And in the beginning, we were trying to get her to strengthen this fascial connection, so she can. We primarily we worked on punching, and our goal was to really, because here's the thing, when you strengthen the fascia, right? If you don't practice any type of movement or no integration to the movement alone, it doesn't translate. You have to, first you have to work on the neurological aspect of it, and then you have to work into your specific movement and integrate what you gain. So, and she was my first MMA client, and the fact that she knocked out Jessica Andrade in 42 seconds, that just speaks volumes. And I think in the beginning, if you go back to watching the UFC fight, a lot of the commentators was like, you don't want to get in the pocket with Jessica Andrade. They were actually saying that, and then the knockout happened, and then they had to stop. I think if you rewind that tape, you can hear the commentators what they were trying to say. But I was very confident. I was like, okay, so if you want to stay in the pocket, you're gonna get destroyed.
Wow. And then, so after Jessica Andrade, you also worked with Zhang Weili before her Joanna fight.
Yeah, so I'm in a team, so we got really, really good results. So we basically, I'm in the part of the team. So when she came over to New York for the preparation for the Joanna fight, we got together and we got to a MMA gym with a aqua force bag where we can measure exactly what we're doing, because I always told my followers and told her that if we don't measure it get into data, then it's all, I think it's very I would say it's not data driven. Results are not data driven. Yes, you feel stronger. Yes, you feel more holistic. Fine. But how do we make it data driven? So when she came over here, we had the chance to do that. And we learned a lot of things because we got her by using the fascia training, we got her from 350, 360, 70, all the way to 565. That's pound of force. That's how much she can deliver. So when I actually was watching the fight she had with Joanna, I'm seeing signs being replicated because all those punches going into Joanna's face, those are probably 400, 500 pounds of force.
Wow.
And that's how the hematoma became about.
Wow.
It's just, there's a tremendous amount of force. And I think for majority of the average people, they just think, wow, she's very, very powerful.
Or even cynically, unfortunately, I've been seeing lots of comments like, oh, she's on PEDs, right? People are like, yeah, it's all because of the PED advantage. So yeah, this is, it's good that we brought you on because there's other explanations besides, what people automatically cynically jump to.
Yeah, I totally understand because the work that we're doing is it's not being it's not something that's mainstream. What we're doing, and recently I actually just got a chance to talk to the professor at the University of Louisiana Tech, and they have a kinesiology department, and then they have a interest of studying my method of training.
Wow.
So I think by doing a double-blind study, people can understand what this thing can do, because I want to say that this is not something that was new. This is something that has been there for thousands of years. And the knowledge was there, but because of mistranslation, misinterpretation, it was lost. But I'm happy that I'm able to reconnect the dots and bring everything back.
Fascinating. See, I had a cousin in China, and he was telling me about he was training Tai Chi, and he couldn't explain why. He thought he mentioned something about connective tissue too, but he couldn't explain why. And so it was at the back of my mind. But he was like, yeah, dude, there are these masters who they seem to be able to use the connective tissue, and they will actually make you jump very far back when they hit you. And, of course, I'm like, well, I got to see proof. But talking to you, it sounds like maybe this is what my cousin was trying to tell me too. So this is very interesting, and I'm glad I brought you on.
My mom actually is involved in research, genetic research. So I had a head start in terms of, okay, how do you study from a scientific point of view? How do you use data, use machine, use tools to measure progress? So but because of that, I was able to, study this thing from a more Western perspective. So that's how I articulate this thing. But a lot of these, I have to say, a lot of what I'm teaching have differences in what traditional trainers are doing. So, for example, I give you a very key difference. Traditional trainers are saying, especially running coaches, they're asking people to dorsiflex. So dorsiflexion, which is this is your foot, right? They're asking people to raise your foot like this. But in my system of training, that's a big no-no. We are emphasizing on the fascia tensioning aspect of training. We're locking the ankle up. So this shin and your foot are actually locked together solid. This is how you get the bounce from the running and momentum. And we can prove it too. If people are interested, we can prove it, because in 20 steps, if you run using Hyperarch mechanism, you're going to see, even though you run the same 20 steps with the fascia tensioning, you're going to be 1 meter to 2 meters ahead of your own self. You can compare. So that's a core difference. The second core difference with what the Western science is teaching today. Western science is teaching that the foot has a tripod system as contact point. So tripod meaning over here, and the heel. In Hyperarch fascia training, this is false. This is actually a foot that's degenerated. If you have 1, 2, and 3 contact point, we only talk about 1 contact point, which is in the ball of the foot and align with your second toe. What is fascinating is that over here, you're going to, over time, as your feet morph, you're going to develop a blister, a callus, and you're able to feel it. And I think if you watch my video with Zhang Weili, she also was able to feel that over time. And this was, by the time I was working with her, at the time of the video we were training, she was already 6 months into training. So she able to feel it. I think the regular people, average people cannot feel that.
It's so interesting. Now, like when this lockdown is done and I visit my boxing gym again, I want to see my boxing coach's feet. I want to see if his feet are like this, because I remember when I first started training, I asked him about how much I should be on the balls of my feet, right? And the way he stood was a little different than maybe how you see some other people stand. Some people are really on the balls of their feet. He in a way, like when you said like the ankle, like, and the foot completely connected, that looked like how he was standing. It was really interesting. So I would have like,
yeah. All elite athletes have the same common denominator. Wow. It cannot discriminate.
Yeah.
See, this is why, once you understand the science behind it, it cannot deviate from it. You can't have somebody who's quad dominant and segmented with no control to their glutes, with soft glutes. What I say is, average people, their glutes are soft. They can't really contract it or manipulate it in any way.
Yeah.
Now you have some people that they can use some of the glutes, but it's actually very low level. Then you have elite athlete who can recruit tremendous amount of glutes. And from dissection, we know that the gluteal fascia is actually 70% of the glutes, or not even more, or more of the glutes composition. So all that glutes, people think, okay, that's just glutamus maximus muscle, medius. That muscle is actually a very small amount compared to fascia. So now we have a complete understanding of how this glutes work will affect someone's ability in combat in different type of sports.
Wow. Wow. Wow, this is so fascinating. What is your plan now for, we're all in lockdown, but after lockdown, do you think you might travel around the world, talk to more people, train more people? Do you think you might launch more online courses or books, etc.?
Yeah, so I have been, I'm going to help Zhang Weili keep on winning. We're going to keep on winning because I think the in the division today. If we keep on training, there's nobody that can beat us. Because I don't think they are able to tap into this mysterious silk railing strength. That's how Tai Chi people call it. So over time, we're just going to prove it with our results, because I don't see how we can possibly lose, because she's a very humble and very hard worker, and she's also very into traditional martial arts, and this is why we work together very well.
I see. Besides Zhang Weili, who are some other people that you work with that other people might know?
There are people, athletes that endorse me. For example, Kidor Ziani, he's a basketball icon in France. He started the dunk show. He's the father of dunk shows, and he even sat next to LeBron James when LeBron James visited France to watch dunk shows. So he always talk about, this is what's fascinating. He always talk about, if you don't have the foot, your knee is gonna hurt. He always talk about that. But I think he doesn't have the science behind it to back it up. But I'm able to prove that he's 100% right. And he always tell people, you have to have strong foot. And his story is that he grew up playing sports barefoot. He never wore a shoe. He was growing up playing barefoot. And if you look at who's dominating today, Pacquiao, right? Pacquiao did not wear a shoe until he was like 15 years old.
Wow.
And he's from the Philippines. A lot of Filipino, the people of Philippines, because of their social economic condition, they don't wear the shoe.
Yeah.
But barefoot. So here's another point I think I have so many disagreements. But barefoot does not necessarily mean that you can tap into the mechanism. That's why, this is also why that, in America, there is a barefoot movement for a while. There's barefoot running and barefoot this and barefoot that. Even the minimum, the 5-finger shoes that people wear, the Vibram shoes.
Yeah.
So people think, okay, I'm barefoot, I'm going to be better. But this is a false understanding, because fascia is very hard to modify, and it has to do with the developmental stages. So here I'm going to bring another Nobel Prize scientist research into this equation, into what I'm trying to explain. Is Weasel and Hubel and Weasel's kitten experiment. So these two scientists, they actually win Nobel Prize for their work on the study of the vision. What they did was they had a kitten, right? They had a kitten, and then they sutured the newborn kitten's eye shot, one eye shot. So the kitten grew, matured without stimulation of the light particles into their cornea, into their eye. So then what happened is, over time, right, they never opened the suture. When the kitten become older and more mature, excuse me, they open the suture, and then they measure using an electrode to the cat's brain, and then they found out that the eye was, even though the organ itself is good, the eye was completely dysfunctional. There was no signal.
I see. So the eye almost became like a vestigial organ, I believe is the right word. It just like was there. No function. Wow.
So our society, right? We emphasize on wearing the shoe since a young age.
Yeah.
So what happened to our neurological stimulation to the feet?
Yep.
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
If the same effect applies to another healthy organ, the eye, the same effect will happen to the foot, and then the foot will translate the same thing to the glutes. So now you look at the elite athletes. A lot of people, I think the famous saying is, this blah 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 came from nothing and become something, rag to riches. He had no shoes, no nothing, and he became this. For me, that's so natural. Yeah. It's really what nature wants us to do. But people who have a lot of money, a lot of they think they have substance, that they are not really working the organs in the way that's designed to function.
Wow. Yeah. One of my good friends in LA, he's left, but he was on Fight Commentary a few times. He would wear those shoes that had the toes separated, and I've always wondered about that. And yeah, it's so funny you mentioned this, because in like a first world country, like going outside in bare shoes just feels so weird. Like bare feet just feel so weird. The first thing you think about is, what if I cut my feet? What if I step on something? What if I do this? What if I do that? But I guess in the old days, or, people who aren't living first world, their feet have calluses. Their feet just naturally morph into a feet that knows how to walk on its own without a shoe.
Yes.
It's so interesting.
Yes, I think a Harvard study showed that when you have calluses on the foot, it doesn't interfere with sensitivity. So you can still use that information that you get from the callus, or through the callus, you still get the neurological feedback. So that's something that the Harvard study has done.
Wow. So interesting. Cool. So how do they find you online? If viewers get interested, they want to learn more from you?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. Just you can put my name in, or put Hyperarch Mechanism. Or on Instagram, my handle is Secret of Athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hate me because I said it's the secret. A lot of these trainers hate me because I say the secret, because the way the way I think it's a secret means, okay, this is not something most people know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, okay, this is the secret pill. You have this, you're automatically a all-star. No. So I think that's something I want to make it clear to people. Like, this is not, this is very hard training. Like, if you think lifting weights is hard, this is 10 times harder.
Wow.
Because this requires discipline, a lot of discipline. But if you are looking to play on a really, really high level on world stage, you have to have this, because I don't think how you can win without it, because this mechanism exists in nature, meaning some people just naturally have more than others.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's like, just like some people have more muscle, some people have more height, some people just have more fascia connectivity. So
yes.
if someone has more fascial connectivity and it makes them perform better, well, maybe that's a sign for people who aren't as naturally gifted to get there, right? Everyone can, just like everyone can grow muscle. It's harder to grow height, but everyone can grow muscle. If you work hard enough, you can grow fascia connectivity.
Yeah, if you use the right method, you can measure it. You can 3 months into the training, you can measure using an EMG.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel it in your body. That's very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people who get to like level 3, to level 2, level 3, people, when they feel their glutes working, when they feel their fascia working, they actually have a lot of self-confidence.
I bet. I mean, you're walking differently. Like,
yes, you are.
People who train martial arts, right? Naturally, they're a little bit more connected than, let's say, bodybuilders. So they already walk differently than other people. Now, I can totally imagine if someone's connective tissue is really connected, right? They're walking even more differently.
Yeah, I mean, the walk is different. If they walk, sometimes a person's walk can be deceiving, because I study so many people, and I kind of see it. But the how the foot behaves when someone walk is a very, very, gives a lot of indication. So, for example, LeBron James trainer, I had a video where I break it down of his trainer. His name is Mike Macias, and versus LeBron James. Now, LeBron James, how he walks is that this area is all locked up. So when he walks, there is no dorsiflexion like this.
Wow.
Now, if you look at LeBron James trainer, which is also happened to be in the video, LeBron James trainer, does this.
Oh.
And if you look at the baby, because all babies have this mechanism, babies don't walk around doing this. They never dorsiflex. All babies learn to walk with the ankle lock.
Yeah, it makes sense. They're kind of like that.
Yes. And this is a mechanism that's so natural that if you just pay attention, pay a little bit of attention, you're going to see it. It's around us everywhere.
Wow. Wow. This is fascinating, man. So, guys, if you guys are curious, I will put links in the description and the pinned comments, etc. And potentially we can bring you back, Chong, if viewers have questions, etc. I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion, debate, as with all these things. So I'd love to bring you back if there's a lot of response on this, and we can kind of like answer people's questions, etc., etc. So this is fascinating, man. For viewers at home, besides paying attention now, I think every viewer is going to start thinking about their toes and thinking about how connected and, how stiff or whatever their ankles are. What are some other things that you start paying attention to just to start thinking about this more?
Right now, there is a device that addresses the posture, right? They have this little sensor, people place it behind their back.
I was going to go review it.
Okay. Yeah. So the Hyperarch training is actually the more natural way of go about doing that. Because what that does, right? That thing, what it's trying to accomplish is to remind you that you are not paying attention to your posture. You may be hunching back, right? You be too relaxed. So the Hyperarch training in the beginning of what we're doing is it's working through your intent. What you are consciously aware. We're working that you have to be consciously aware of your feet. You have to remind yourself that you need to actively put intention into your feet. When you move, when you watch TV, when you walk. But there are signs that immediately you're going to see in your feet, so you can feel it, because everyone, I think, even without glute connection, what they can achieve is they can lock up their ankle. So they don't have ankle sprays. Because when you apply enough fascial tension, what I say is enough, you apply a little bit, it does not work. You have to have enough fascial tension that the ankle will lock. Just like, in traditional martial arts, we have this particular hand gesture. Right? So you can see this. So there's people that do this. This hand gesture here is actually strengthened in an attempt to create fascial tension in their upper body. But the hand is not as powerful as the feet, because the feet has 200,000 nerve endings. Wow. It's really the foundation of your movement. The hand, even if you try to put fascial tension in the hand, it's not going to be as effective as generating more strength into your body. I think the difference is here. I want more scientific. I welcome all universities to come to me and study this thing, because I think it's a such great mechanism, and it's a very important to have. And also I think it minimizes a lot of different type of sports injury. Like the first thing is the ankle spray. Why people have sample spray? Because over time the fascia underneath, without stimulation, the fascial web, the matrix itself, start to lose tension. Now when you lose tension, you just have no strength to lock your ankle up. So your hand, for example, you can lock your wrist pretty easily. Even when you try to do karate chop, where you try to do the palm, because your hand never degenerates to the extent of your foot. One of the reasons I reached out to you is because you cover Xu Xiaodong a lot, right? So I want to tell people who are maybe on the side saying, traditional martial arts, it might not be useful in MMA. I would say, yes, in majority of the cases, yes, there are deficiencies in training, in combat. There's just like any other sports. Like if I ask you to play basketball, right? I ask you to dribble. All you do is dribble. But I don't ask you to actually shoot the basketball. you're not going to be good at shooting the basketball.
Yeah, yeah.
So the same thing with MMA is if I don't tell you to punch and punch to the target, and there's no pad work, right? There's no real sparring, you're not going to get better, right? But I think what the essence of the Chinese martial arts is, what I'm trying to bring it out to people's attention, is the fascia tensioning aspect that's currently not being widely understood or accepted. People can try and then they will understand martial arts much better. So I have to say that Xu Xiaotong, even though he defeated the Tai Chi master, but he kind of generalized that Tai Chi is not effective. But I think for that person, yes, that person, no doubt, he is not as effective as Xu Xiaotong. But I think the art of Tai Chi has profound impact to me and to a lot of people. I think it's really, really powerful. And when people say, where is the Tai Chi in Zhang Weili's fight? You cannot see it. It's in there. That's the secret of Tai Chi. Tai Chi, when it's in your body through the fascia, it's formless. And this is, I think, it goes back to what Bruce Lee was saying. You need to be like water. It goes into different type of cups. You're gonna form different type of shapes. So the fascia connection, you can use it in any way that you want to use. It doesn't have to be used in a multi form. You can use in a boxing form. You can use it in a bagua form, for example, a changquan form, or Yung Chun. There's a lot of things, a lot of ways that you can use it.
Makes sense. Wow, fascinating. Guys, this was a great conversation with Chong Xie Chong, aka Chong Xie. So Chong, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Viewers of Fight Commentary Breakdowns, follow those links if you want to check out his stuff, and then leave your comments below, and we'll bring Chong back and we will answer more questions, do a follow-up. So again, Chong, this was really enlightening, gives me a lot to think about. I'm definitely going to pay attention to my ankles and my foot more. So just like anything, right? Like, it's pay attention to them, because a lot of times what happens with humans is that we start paying attention to parts of our body after it gets hurt. Like, my neck got hurt, so now I'm strengthening my neck. Like, compared to before, my neck's much stronger. But like, I wish someone told me before, this is what you got to worry about with your neck, so that way I strengthen it proactively. So I think what Chong is teaching us is there's things about the feet you have to pay attention to, and there are ways to strengthen it and make it work better that it'll benefit the entire body. Because everything, especially if we talk in a combat sports, martial arts type of conversation, everything starts from the feet. Power starts from the feet. So yeah, great conversation, man.
Thank you.